And I appreciate you doing this. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the process that we're going through. You're selling a bike, I'm buying it from you. And it's an interesting process because even though we both we're both from Virginia, most recently, you're actually in California. So this is
yeah, that's correct.
this is a long distance sale. I would just like you to talk a little bit about why you decided to sell the bike in the first place, even though I kind of know this because we've talked. But I want to just kind of get it for this.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I've had the bike since 2019. Always wanted a big GS. I started looking, and it's such a good platform. It's hard to beat. I think it's a do everything bike. I was able to commute on it. I was able to do the adventure riding thing, kind of some sport touring. It checked all the boxes for me. And I really enjoyed it. I bought it when I was out in Virginia. Did quite a few like long weekend trips and little tours here with family and friends. And then with COVID, I was able to relocate out to California temporarily and enjoy the 12-month riding season out here. And I've always been attracted to California, so we did a big 1,500-mile road trip up and down the state.
Nice.
And use the bike just exactly for what it was intended for. Some road miles, some off-road miles. We did the hotel thing. We didn't camp, so I wasn't totally loaded down, but the bike performed flawlessly, and it's exactly where it was comfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm in the Los Angeles area in California. I live in the South Bay, which is kind of a beach town. And so I was looking for something a little bit smaller. The GS is a little bit cumbersome around town, and California, you can do the whole lane splitting thing, which I'm new to, but it's a little nerve wracking on a big 700-pound bike.
Yeah.
It's a big seating position. And so I started kind of poking around, and I purchased a bike in December. And so kind of like one in, one out philosophy.
Yeah. What kind of bike did you get?
I bought a Ducati Scrambler.
Okay.
So a first year 2015 803cc air cooled. So it's a smaller platform. It weighs about 400 pounds. Pretty easy to hop on and go to the store, or throw some stuff on the back of, do grocery runs. But definitely nowhere near as capable as the GS. I was realizing after I bought it, I was like, man, I don't have cruise control or heated grips or adjustable suspension or quick shifting. I was like, oh, I'm gonna miss some of it. And I was looking at dual sports. I was looking at quite a few smaller platform bikes, the Honda 250 platform and the 450 platforms. I wanted something, being out here close to the desert and whatnot, I wanted something I could still go off road and have a little bit of fun. And the Ducati came up on the forum, actually, where we were connected. I'm a big fan of the forum, and when I'm looking for bikes, I look everywhere pretty much. Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, forums, asking friends, just try to cast a wide net. But the particular forum that we met on has been a great resource, both for information, but also gear and bikes and everything. So found a Ducati at the right price and pulled the trigger. And I'm going to be sad to see the GS go, but it's fun to try different stuff. And
yeah,
it's easy enough
absolutely.
to kind of check things out, enjoy things for a couple of years, and then move on.
Did you know very much about BMWs before you got the GS?
A little bit. I come from a BMW family, both automotive and motorcycles. My brother has he just bought a race bike, but he had an S1000R. My dad has an RT. So we've had some experience with the bikes, and I've always admired what they do from an engineering and capability standpoint. And when I was looking at adventure bikes, it was always BMW. I admire what KTM does with their dirt bikes, and I think they make a competitive product too. But BMW's been in this game for so long, and I think they do a great job.
Yeah, I totally agree, which is why this is going to be my fourth GS. And I was telling my friends earlier, it was almost, and I don't think I shared this with you yet. It was kind of a destiny. I almost had no choice but to buy your bike. The GS that I'm riding right now is a 2005 that was sold in 2004. So when I bought it, it was 2010. So the bike was 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It's blue. And when I bought it, it had 52,000 miles on it. Your bike is a 2015. It's now 6 years old. It's
Yep.
blue, and I'm getting it with 52,000 miles on it. So I almost had no choice. And
Yeah.
to top it off, the only big difference between your bike and my bike is that when I bought my 2005, it had the Vario cases on it. It had the two
Right.
side cases and the top case that expand. And your bike is basically completely stripped down. No cases, no engine guards, not really nothing fancy.
Yeah.
Um, how did you manage to like do your weekend trips and stuff? Because I think, with no side cases, what do you do? Do you wear a backpack?
Yeah. So it was kind of an interesting journey for me. I bought the bike naked, and I'd always loved the look and the functionality of the boxes. I think that's kind of like a classic, touring GS look. I liked the triple boxes. When I first bought it, it was just a little cost prohibitive for me.
Yeah,
So what I ended up doing was picking up one of the Moscow Moto duffels, and
those are pretty big too.
they're pretty big. Yeah, I've got the 40-liter one. And so I can pack, a week's worth of clothes and gear and tools. And I'm a photographer, so throw my camera in there as well. And it works great. And I'm able to run it on the pillion seat, just parallel with me, so it doesn't stick out too wide.
Yeah.
It keeps the bike narrow, and that was a great solution for me. On that trip we did in November, I bought a tank bag just for easy access to a couple things. And that solution for me worked great. And I was able to carry pretty much everything I needed, and we were on the road for 8 days. And it
Nice.
worked great.
So we've done this whole deal over the internet.
Mm-hmm.
One of my friends sent me a link to the ad on ADV Rider where you had posted it. I sent you a PM. We talked on the phone the next day, and then it kind of went to text messages and emails, and now here we're on Zoom. Have you ever bought or sold a motorcycle like this before? I mean, you said you found it on ADV Rider, or you
Mm-hmm.
found your Ducati on ADV Rider. But have you ever done it like this, where really we're never going to meet in person?
Right. Um, I've bought one motorcycle out of state sight unseen, and plenty of cars out of state sight unseen as well. I mean, with the internet and technology nowadays, it makes it pretty easy to get a feel for what everything looks like. And
Yeah,
I think the biggest variable with deals like this, where you may not meet in person, is just trust and communication. And it takes you sent me a check today, and it takes a lot for you to send off some money without meeting this person or seeing what you may be getting. But yeah, I think us using technology to our advantage to be able to both feel good about it and get a sense for what the other person is like and why they're selling it, get as much information as you can is key. But yeah, there's definitely things that I look for, when I'm buying something sight unseen. Unfortunately, it's just a bad habit, putting on the nationwide search for whatever you're looking for, trying to find
yeah,
the best deal and the best condition and all those things. I fall into that trap more often than not. I don't think I've ever bought anything locally, unfortunately.
yeah.
One of these days, maybe.
What are some of the red flags that might have popped up that would have given you pause as we were talking to each other? Not like, obviously we made the deal, so if there, and I'm not asking you to like judge me and tell me tell everybody what about me like made you wiggy, but I'm just curious, what do you find to be like red flags that might have stopped the deal?
Right. Yeah, I think, if you were maybe hesitant to jump on the phone or talk anywhere other than like in a PM, because PMs can be kind of tough. It's a great way to start the conversation, but a private message or a direct message may
Yeah,
not always be the best way to get all the information that you need. So I think the fact that we talked on the phone and we were able to kind of exchange stories of why I was selling, why you were looking, and come to a deal like that. I always prefer to do that over the phone. Um,
Yeah,
from a
I absolutely agree. Sorry to interrupt you. And the first PM I sent you, actually, I think it might be the only one at this point. I gave you my phone number and said, "Hey, give me a
Mhm,
call when you get a chance tomorrow or
yeah,
whatever, and let's chat about it." And for me, if you had not called me, I probably wouldn't have bought the bike.
right.
Because that, to me, that's a red flag too. If the person is just unwilling to talk on the phone, and I realize, talking on the phone is not what everybody likes to do. My
Yeah.
daughter is 18 years old. She doesn't talk on the phone. It's just not something she does. Um,
Hmm.
and I probably, like, if you had sent me a text message, that probably would have been okay. But I really wanted to talk to you just to, I don't know, maybe there's something in me that thinks I can hear a dishonest person's tone of voice.
Definitely. Yeah.
I think that's a little weird and a little, meta, but yeah, I've passed on deals for all sorts of stuff just because somebody refused to get on the phone with me, or wasn't available ever, never answered the phone or whatever. So
Hmm.
I absolutely agree with you. That's a huge red flag. Um, Now I know that you had the bike shipped out to you when you moved out to LA.
Hmm.
How did you go about finding a shipper? What was your process on that?
Yeah. So I started my research on the forum as well. Again, another great place, a great resource for,
Yeah.
finding people who have done or looking to do the same things that you're looking to do. So I started looking at different shipping options. UShip was the first thing that was recommended, which is just kind of like a community based. I want to spend this much to move something from point A to point B, and somebody says I would like to take that much, and I'll do the job.
Yeah.
Um, I
Kind of
didn't
like
love that
like
idea.
gigging.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I didn't love that idea, but it was a solid option. Definitely the most cost effective. If I
Yeah.
just wanted to get it out here, it would have been cheap. From there, I started looking at motorcycle specific shippers, which is something I liked the idea of. The BMW is a heavy bike, so I don't
Yeah.
want some guy rolling it around, maybe into the back of his pickup truck or something. Like, it could get out of hand and you could have something weird happen. So I like the idea of having a motorcycle specific shipper, people who were comfortable with moving bikes around, and um, someone that had a good reputation. There was also a pretty good list of private shippers as well, guys that will go up and down the East Coast and with just a personal trailer, and
Oh,
that's
yeah. I never
something
even
that
thought
they
of that.
do. Yeah, the cross country made it a little bit difficult because you really need somebody with a tractor trailer, an 18
Yeah.
wheeler, some serious space. And so from that point, there were a few different options that kind of rose to the top, and I went with the option I felt was the most cost effective, and something that I trusted as well, which ended up being a service called Haul Bikes.
Yeah. And I've used haul bikes before, and that coming out in our conversation, it made them my first contact as well. I think I got quotes from 4 different companies.
Hmm.
I didn't look at UShip at all. Um, just my previous experience with UShip was not positive. So I didn't, and of course I know every shipper is different. Every experience is going to be different, but I wasn't going to go back to UShip for personal reasons. And I've used haul bikes before. They did a good job. And out of the 4 hard quotes that I got, um, haul bikes was probably the third. It wasn't the least expensive. It was the next up from least expensive,
Hmm.
but it was the one that I felt the most comfortable with. The highest quote I got from California to Virginia was $923.
Wow. Yeah.
And they didn't make me feel any better than the folks at Haul Bikes did.
Hmm.
So I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go with the Haul Bikes. And it helped me make that decision that you were familiar with them and that you were comfortable with them, because then I knew that that would help kind of smooth things on your end, because it's a lot of faith to, put your bike on a truck and they drive away with it, and what's going to happen to it, and when it gets to the
Yeah.
other end it belongs to somebody else. And you know so and you had a lot of really good ideas about how to do the deal to make me feel comfortable, and I appreciated all the thought that you had put into it, because I've sold bikes long distance from ads. I sold a bike on ADV Rider myself quite some time ago,
Mhm.
But I actually put the bike on a trailer and drove to Columbus, Ohio, and met the dude there. Columbus was
Right. Yeah.
halfway. He lives
Okay.
somewhere in Missouri or whatever. So we met in Columbus in the middle of a snowstorm in January. Uh, and I took the bike off my trailer and he put the bike on. Well, first he dropped it on the icy road uh, after I made
Nice.
him sign the papers.
Yeah.
He wanted to ride it into the trailer, and I was like, let's sign the papers first, and then you can ride it all you want. And he
Right.
got to the bottom of the driveway, and it slid right out from under him because the ground was covered with ice. So we actually pushed it into his trailer. But and then he drove off with his bike in his trailer, and I drove off with no bike on the trailer and a handful of cash. So this is a little bit different. This is the first time I've ever done a real, but I had no hesitation to buy a BMW sight unseen. And okay, so the last kind of point I want to make is that you told me what the most recent service was, what was done, and who did it. And it just happens that I know the guy who did the service, and he's a
Yeah.
great mechanic, and I trust him. And I turned around and called him and said, hey, do you remember this bike? And he's like, yeah, kind of, he remembers you more than he remembers the bike.
Yeah. He was super nice. He let me hang around the shop because I didn't have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
So we chatted a while, but yeah, it
Yeah.
was
So
funny. And
just knowing that he had worked on the bike and that you were intelligent enough to take it to him, that was kind of what sank the deal for me. That was like the last thing that pushed me over the top. So and I don't even at this point, not knowing you, I would normally want to see a bunch of maintenance records,
right.
but knowing that Anton is the guy that worked on the bike, I'm like, I don't need to see maintenance records, because he would have told you if anything was wrong.
Yeah.
And he would have, you guys would have worked out a way to fix it, and et cetera, et cetera. And I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like you would have told me if there was anything wrong with the bike,
Yeah.
significantly. We talked
Right.
about the tire pressure monitor being a little wonky, not something I care about really. But some people might be twitchy about that kind of stuff.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And there's always the option. I mean, it just worked out. Luckily that, you're familiar with Anton and we happen to be from the same state and we were able to have that connection. Had that not been the case, in my experience, it's pretty easy to find a reputable independent mechanic or dealer
Yep.
to do a PPI if you want. Or I've also had some success with, reaching out to folks who maybe would be in my area who are familiar with GSs in particular. And, you post something and say, hey, I'm looking at this bike in California. I'll give $200 to anybody who can go give it a once over and just lay eyes on it to make sure, it's safe and trustworthy and what's expected.
Yeah,
I've
that's a
done that as well.
fantastic idea. That's a fantastic idea. I've done that before with guitars, but it never occurred to me to do it with a motorcycle. And I live near a fairly large-ish city. It's not big, but certainly if anybody ever asks me to go check out a motorcycle, I'm going to do that.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
a fantastic idea. So
Yeah.
guys, do you have any questions for Matt? You want to grill him on anything? Now, we've already made the deal and money has started to exchange hands. So
Yeah.
neither one of us is backing out of this deal. So you can't say anything
Yeah.
that will blow the deal.
And before we get into that, do you want to talk about the mechanics of the money and the how we came to a deal that we both felt comfortable with?
Yeah, absolutely. Because and you had the perfect idea, and I didn't know how we were going to handle that. Because I'm not going to send cash 4 figures through the mail.
Yeah.
So what you suggested, and what I thought was a fantastic idea, was that I would send you a check for half, a cashier's check. I think I said cashier's check, and you said half. So I sent that and I overnighted it with the agreement that once you got it, you would mark it sold on ADV Rider. And then because that's a smart thing to do. It's never sold until you have money in your hand.
Right.
And then at that point, once I sent you the check, I would trigger the haul bikes process, which I didn't want to do until you had money on the way. So after I dropped the check with UPS, I called Haul Bikes and they sent me a contract and we got that all straightened out. And then when it's time, Haul Bikes is going to call you and you're going to take them the bike, and you agreed to just make a phone video of them putting the bike on the truck. and then we're going to do overnights again, and the other half of the money is going to come your way and the title's going to come my way. So, and then I think the only accessory you had on the bike was the nav system, the GPS. And you wanted to pull that off and send that separately in a box so it didn't get scratched or broken during shipping, which is probably not something that would happen, but it's always a possibility, and you don't want to have to deal with it being broken when it gets here.
Yeah. And I mean, on top of that too, a little act of faith, you're getting something, because the haul bikes is going to take,
weeks.
Weeks. So you're getting the most expensive GPS on the forum, I'm sure, initially, but it's coming your way. And I think it's easy enough. A haul bikes doesn't let you send any attachments with it,
right?
Or extra stuff at all. It's just the motorcycle. So luckily the GPS was small and could have gone along with it, but I just prefer to take it off and ship it over to you, along with some paperwork that I've got, little bits and pieces here and there, just so you can have it in your hands.
Yeah, which I will diligently 3-hole punch and put into my binder, because I'm that guy.
Yeah. And you can start route planning and everything, and when you get the bike, you just slap it on, you'll be ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So now, guys, questions for Matt.
This all sounds great. You got any more bikes for sale?
Strictly one in, one out, but I got some other toys that keep me busy, and nothing for sale quite yet, but I am excited to have the Ducati in my hands. It's not quite here yet.
I'm curious, Matt, how long had you had the bike listed before you, before Wes contacted you?
I think it was about 8 or 9 days. It had been on the forum, and it's kind of funny, the location it was listed, the forum moves pretty quickly. So, if you check something in the morning, something may be on the 3rd page by the evening. So I was trying not to spam with, bumps and everything. I would imagine, Wes, for you, someone that was looking for a GS, you typically would use the search function and kind of see what's up for sale in the GS category. So I wasn't too worried about it being on the front page constantly, but it was about probably about 10 days.
Have you had experience? You said you buy a lot of things sometimes where you have to have the item shipped to you. Has it been the same thing when you sell your bikes or other things as well? They often go to some distant location.
Yeah, I have more experience with cars than motorcycles, but typically I feel like, I'm the type of enthusiast that's looking for something particular, and I like to find, a good deal that fits within my budget and my needs. And I feel like there's a lot of like-minded people that are willing to make the travel or the whatever needs to work to get what they're looking for as well. And I think the kind of specialty ADV rider forum, it seems like there are a lot of cross-state deals, because it's a popular place to list stuff. So I've had quite a few cars and motorcycles, I guess, go across state lines, and I think the process tends to be pretty smooth. Again, I think you invest in the person, not the deal, and more often than not, it works out.
Yeah, cool.
I haven't been burned yet, so I'm not
good.
I tend to be pretty trusting, but I also want both parties to feel comfortable.
Yeah, and you also are very thorough, so trust gets you so far, and detail gets you the rest of the way. And Scott, if I can chime in on that question as well, I don't do it so much anymore, but I used to buy and sell a lot of high-end guitars, electric guitars, and some of those can be surprisingly expensive. And you got to put them into a box and ship them. You got to give them to the UPS guy, and some UPS guys are great, and some are not great. And putting a guitar that has a comma in the price into a truck in the middle of July can be a little bit of a crapshoot. So I think if I had not had that experience of kind of dealing in these high-end electric guitars, I might have hesitated more, because at that point the motorcycle is really just kind of a scale thing. I'm already kind of comfortable with the process of buying and selling and shipping, for fairly sizable sums. I've never owned a guitar that was worth as much as this motorcycle. not even close. I don't think by half at least.
But you don't
So
have to worry about a GS cracking its finish and checking in the weather either. So
yeah, that's true.
it's a lot more robust item.
Yeah. So anybody else have any questions or want to chat with Matt about something before we let him get on to his dinner and get on with his life? Hit it, Jeds. You got to unmute.
So, are you the original owner?
I'm not.
So tell me
No,
the history of the motorcycle.
Yeah. So I bought it from a gentleman in Atlanta. So took a road trip with my brother from the DC area down to go pick it up. He had owned it since about 2017. He bought it for a similar use, put a bunch of miles on it, doing trips with his friends. He had a great group of riding buddies that would do a big annual trip.
How many miles were on it when you acquired it?
When I bought it, 48,000.
Okay, so you've put 5,000 miles on it?
Yeah, 4.5. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And most of that was just because I was working in the city in DC and I commuted on my Vespa.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a whole lot of daily riding on it. It was more of a trip machine for me.
Okay. You went from a Vespa to a 1200 cc GS.
Yeah, 150 cc to 1200 cc. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
and I
awesome.
had bike experience before, but it was, I'd never had, a liter plus displacement bike. And
Yeah.
I will say the GS was incredibly easy to learn and feel comfortable on. It's certainly a big, heavy motorcycle. I mean, the adage on the forum is, anything over 5 mile an hour, you're safe, happy riding. All the accidents tend to happen, moving around in a parking lot or in the garage or something, the drops and stuff. Because once it starts going and goes past that 30-degree angle, you're fighting it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a big change.
My guys know what my my minimum requirements for my next motorcycle were. Do you guys, anybody want to shout out what they were?
I
Dry
say
Clutch.
you said no dry clutches for the past 3 months is what you've been saying.
Yeah.
And
Heated grips,
Yeah.
The heated grips are great. Yeah, you're gonna love them.
cruise control.
Yep, those are the three.
Oh,
Wet
that's
clutch,
it,
Yeah.
wet clutch, heated grips, cruise control. And
That's-
I'm excited about the quick shifter. I've ridden one BMW that had a quick
Yeah.
shifter, and it actually was a 2015 RT, and that was just a fantastic experience. If that was a press bike, if BMW would have been willing to sell me that bike, I probably would have bought it, but it was brand new and they were just using them for press demos, so I had to give it back. But that I'm excited about the quick shifter because that is such a cool feature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It was interesting on this trip that we did out in California. My brother and dad came out with me, and they didn't ship their bikes. They rented out here, and there's a great rental shop out on the West Coast called MotoQuest, and they have quite a few GSs out here. And so my dad and brother rented some 1200 GSs, and I didn't realize how good of a spec my GS was relative to what might be more common.
Right.
Because they didn't have cruise control, or I think they did have heated grips, but it was funny. I was really feeling luxurious cruising along with my my cruise control and even just the quick shifter off the line and whatnot, because inland California tends to be pretty straight and rural, and we're just cruising for 2 hours maybe just up the highway, and my wrist was happy and I was comfortable and we were all loving it. They were just bitching and moaning when we got back. Yeah, it's pretty funny. I'm gonna miss some of those features for sure.
Nice. Now, do you guys, Peanut Gallery guys, do you have any questions for me before we let Matt go?
One more for Matt.
Oh,
does this bike already have a name?
It doesn't have a name. No, I never gave it one.
Yeah, some people don't give bikes names. That's cool. So, and I don't even know if Wes names bikes. He probably doesn't.
I don't. Until they start to make me angry, and then I usually call them nasty things.
No, but it was really nice meeting Matt. Really nice meeting you tonight.
Great to meet you all too.
It's cool that you guys had such a good transaction here so far.
Yeah, smooth sailing.
Yeah, it's up to haul bikes now.
Yeah.
We'll see. Hopefully they'll come. The window starts on the 26th of February, and hopefully they come early in the window. And hopefully, they say it could take up to a full month for me to get the bike. They estimated the latest would be the 26th of March, so that's a full 30 days. And I'm mentally preparing myself for it all to take the longest period of time. So as soon as they pick it up and Matt and I do the exchange of the title for the rest of the money, as soon as we do that, I'm going to make my appointment at DMV, which will probably take me 2 or 2.5 weeks to get. So it may get here before I can transfer my plate to it, but it may not either. So the timing is probably going to be such that I can't really ride the bike until it gets here anyway. So it doesn't need to get here earlier than, the end of March.
Yeah.
I got a question for Wes, I think.
Hit me,
This is
Scott.
it's a 2016?
15.
15.
Oh.
And so Wes, what was new on that bike for that year? What was the changes that happened that year?
So that's the first generation of liquid cooled BMW R bikes. And it's actually the end of the first iteration. So they started in 2013, and the 2015 is part of that first generation. At 2016, they made some minor changes. So they didn't really change anything between 14 and 15 on this bike. And it's, for me, I don't typically go for the first model year, which for 13s was kind of short. So I've known some people with 2014s that have had some weird problems. I know one guy who had to have his engine replaced because valve spring disintegrated, which is a really weird problem. So knowing that it was at the end of that first generation made it a lot more attractive to me.
Can you remember when this generation came out and what you thought about the bikes at the time, or no? Is it too long ago?
Yeah, I was really excited about BMW putting liquid cooling on the Boxers because it changed the look. They started to look a little more modern, space age, maybe postmodern. And it went from having the intake on the back of the cylinder and the outflow on the front to being the intake on top and the exhaust on the bottom. So it looked a lot more flowy and a lot smoother just on the sides of the engine. And I just remember when I rode that press bike RT, just being incredibly impressed with how smooth it operated. And that bike hadn't even had its break-in service yet. And I had to keep it under 9,000 RPM the whole time. And it was still just an incredibly smooth motorcycle.
Is that when they moved the exhaust to the other side, or was that a different time?
That is when they moved it to the, well, you know what, to tell you the truth, I want to say it is in 2013.
It is, yeah. When they went to water cooling, everything shifted side to side because with the clutch on the front of the motor now, they had to move all that stuff around. So
yeah, and still, even though it's a wet clutch, it's on the front of the engine and not the side, like a normal bike.
Yeah.
But it's a wet clutch.
Well, yeah, because the cylinder is sticking out the sides. So
Yep.
Cool.
Wes, did you have any hesitation, mile wise when you were shopping for bikes? Were you looking, is there a number that you wanted to stay below or above, knowing that it's not a brand new bike, it's not a vintage bike? What were you kind of looking for mile wise, or any sort of cues?
Yeah, looking for like my next touring bike, which is what I'm going to use this for. I really wanted to find something that was right around, no more than about 50K. And 52 fits right in with my idea of how far I want the bike to have gone, because it's long enough that it's broken in and it's been through the warranty period with a little extra time. So I feel like most of the things that could have gone wrong during that early period will have been gone wrong and then been fixed. Now that was not the case with my current 05 GS that I got with 52K, which started to break 2,000 miles after I got it. But that's a completely different story. And you know, but I know more about the water cooled generation now than I knew about the hex head generation then, if that makes sense.
Right.
And part of that is just because I've started working in the industry. I've started working on bikes more, so I have a lot more experience myself. So yeah, I might have. I did look at a couple of bikes that had more than 60,000 miles on them, but at that point, and I don't mean this to insult anybody, if one of those people happens to watch this that I talk to, I think that some people that have bikes that have slightly higher mileage overvalue them. So for me, the mileage has to match the price.
Right.
You know, so if you'd had another 10,000 miles on the bike, I would have liked to see it probably another $1,000 cheaper. And similarly, if it had 10,000 less, I might have expected it to be $1,000 more.
Right.
Yeah. So, and mileage, it is a concern, but yours was right in my sweet spot of comfort versus price, you know? It's an excellent question. Yes, I hadn't thought about that really hard. Yeah. Some of the other bikes I was looking at, I was also considering S1000 XRs. And some of those, like I looked at one that had 50,000 miles on it, and I discounted that because I haven't seen any S1000 motorcycles with that many miles on them in that period of time. And I think that was a 2016. So when I was really thinking about the XR, I was looking for bikes that had 20,000 or less, because I feel like more than that, and they'd just been kind of ridden harder than I wanted them to be when I got them, if that makes sense. So with a 2015 bike, it's barely 6 years old, 52,000 miles. That's less than 10,000 miles a year. So I feel like that's where I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks, Matt. I appreciate this. And
Of course.
you know, I'll send you a link when the video comes out. I don't know when that'll be, because after you send me the video of them putting the bike on the truck, I'm going to make sure that I'm there to get video of them taking the bike off the truck. So we kind of have bookends.
Right.
And then I'll probably do a follow-up video of like going over the bike to show people what to look for when they finally get their bike delivered, to be able to, you know, just check it to make sure it matches the description and that it wasn't damaged in transit and stuff like that. And that'll be fun to do too, because the guy that I make the videos with he's like Anton, except for Northern Virginia. His name is George Manjicaro, and he and Anton actually trade a lot of parts back and forth, and a lot of customers and all that kind of stuff. So George he's kind of my comedy sidekick, because he's really kind of sour and acerbic, but he's got a really dry sense of humor. But he's like Anton. He's brilliant. He knows these motorcycles inside and out. So yeah, he's a good resource to have, and he's starting to get a little more comfortable on camera, which is nice.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's great. And I'll definitely send a preloading set of photos and videos. They do offer that. Haul Bikes does offer that as part of the service, you know, verifying condition and damage. And the photos that I received might have been my bike. I don't know. It looked like it was taken on like a mid 2000s flip phone. Like, they were certainly pictures, I will tell you that. But
yeah,
you can't really tell. So I'll send you some better photos and videos.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Verify.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, my Haul Bike story was a good one. The service was fantastic, but when they delivered it, the guy gave me the paperwork that they had filled out, because I wasn't there when they picked it up. It got picked up at a dealership in Colorado, in Denver, and they didn't mail me the form. You know, they kept their copy and filed it, and so I got the copy from the Haul Bikes guy. And they have a little diagram, a little picture of the motorcycle, and they're supposed to identify where there's already damage to the motorcycle, so that, like you do with a rental car, you know, so that when it arrives, I know that they knew that it was already slightly damaged, scratched, dented, nicked, whatever. So on the form, the guy had circled the entire motorcycle and written filthy, scratches everywhere. And it was absolutely true, because
Right.
it was filthy, and that was before I'd had it repaired and painted. So it was completely accurate. And I looked at that and I just laughed at the guy. And he was like, "What are you laughing at, man?" I was like, "Did you see this form?" He's like, "Yeah, that's hilarious." Like, that's what I'm laughing at.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't the one that picked it up. You know, he got it from the
Mhm.
warehouse and brought it to the East Coast. It was really funny. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of curious to see what they write on the form this time.
Definitely. Yeah. And no one's going to care as much about the condition as me and you. So I want
Yeah.
to make sure that we're the ones kind of keeping an eye on things, and you have what you need. I've got what I need and all that stuff.